Welcome to a new Common Sense episode by Pylotechnica. Today, we're peeling back the layers of a concept that kind of quietly shapes our daily lives, our comfort zone. We all, intuitively understand it, but what if much of what we think we know about growth and fear and achieving our biggest dreams, what if it's incomplete? This deep dive is your shortcut to understanding the hidden dynamics at play, drawing some fascinating insights directly from the source material we've gathered for you. Our mission today isn't just to define the comfort zone. We want to truly unpack what lies beyond it, what genuinely happens when you venture out, and maybe most importantly, arm you with practical, actionable strategies to encourage that vital personal expansion. So let's redefine what we thought we knew. What at its core is the comfort zone?
That's a really fundamental question, isn't it? And it often gets, oversimplified. At its core, the comfort zone is this metaphorical space, you could say, where you operate in an environment you've completely mastered. It's a landscape of the familiar. And here's the crucial distinction our source highlights. It's comfortable because it's familiar. Whether the experiences themselves are pleasant or not, that's a crucial distinction many miss. It means your comfort zone isn't just your happy place, it's also where you've grown accustomed to your struggles, your limitations even.
That's a powerful reframing. So it's not necessarily about feeling good in there. Even if that familiarity is with something we actively dislike, does the source get into why our brain might prioritize that familiarity over, say, actual comfort? What's the thinking there?
Our brain, fundamentally, it craves predictability and efficiency. The familiar just requires less cognitive energy, less work. Regularly flying to a familiar airport, okay, that's your comfort zone because it's a known, predictable pattern. But it also explicitly includes things like getting used to flight delays or experiencing jet lag after a long-haul flight. Even those less than pleasant things become part of your comfort zone because they're known quantities. Predictable discomforts, you might say. Even the dynamics of your relationships, whether you enjoy them or, frequently find yourself in conflict with your partner, that's also within the bounds of your comfort zone because it's the known routine. Your brain has mapped it so it feels safe, relatively speaking.
Okay, so it's really about established patterns, even the patterns of conflict or inconvenience. That truly broadens the definition for me.
Exactly right. This zone is composed of your deeply ingrained habits, your daily routines, the skills you've absolutely mastered, your existing knowledge base, your ingrained attitudes, and your habitual behaviors. And from your brain's perspective, operating within these boundaries feels incredibly safe and in control. The brain is kind of lazy and happy in its comfort zone. It's optimizing for minimal energy expenditure.
Lazy and happy. I can definitely relate to that sometimes. But okay, if our brain is so content there, then where does the real work and maybe the real reward begin? Our source suggests the magic begins outside the zone. Can you walk us through what lies beyond that comfortable, familiar bubble?
So once you begin to venture out, you immediately encounter three distinct subsequent zones. It's like a natural progression. First, immediately around your comfort zone, you have the fear zone. This is where your brain's deeply ingrained survival mechanisms really kick in. It expresses a lack of confidence. It immediately starts to find excuses to halt your progress. It instinctively wants to return to the comfort zone where everything is known and feels safe.
The classic internal struggle. Is the biggest, maybe technical hurdle here not just our own fear, but also how others react? Does the source talk about telling the difference between genuine caution and, say, anxiety reinforced by others?
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how strongly this initial fear zone is influenced by what the material calls opinions of other brains. Other people who themselves find venturing out frightening will often unconsciously or maybe even consciously reinforce your apprehension. Sometimes they even see your desire to leave the comfort zone as, well, a danger. It's about recognizing that not all caution is created equal, but it heavily implies that fear originating from external opinions rather than direct personal experience or a genuine threat is often a barrier you need to overcome. It's also really important to address a common false assumption some people hold, that if you leave your comfort zone, it just disappears. That's simply not true. It actually extends, you add new territory to it.
Okay, so it's not like a one-way door to oblivion, which is frankly a relief. That shifts the whole perspective, doesn't it? What comes after we brave that initial wave of fear, that internal and maybe external resistance?
Right. Once you intentionally cross that fear zone, you enter what our source calls the knowledge and skills zone, or, more broadly, your learning zone. The explicit purpose here is to broaden your vision of the world. It's where you engage in activities like learning new languages, embarking on travels to unknown countries, experiencing novel sensations, enriching your perspectives, intentionally modifying old habits, immersing yourself in different cultures, or simply meeting new and diverse people. It's a dynamic zone of observation, experimentation, comparison, and constant learning.
That sounds like a truly exciting place to be, actually. A dynamic space of active growth. What's the brain doing in this zone? How does it react to all this new stuff?
Well, it's a zone of intense, active engagement. You are constantly observing, experimenting, comparing, and deeply learning. Your brain definitely needs to make a sustained effort here, right? Acquiring new knowledge, new skills, facing novel challenges. But crucially, it gradually starts to feel safer. It begins to consider this new territory an extension of the old comfort zone, integrating the new experiences into its map of the familiar. In fact, some people are apparently so passionate about this zone that they frequent it constantly, always seeking new learning experiences, personal development. They become, in a sense, comfort zone expanders by default.
Yeah, I certainly know a few people who seem to embody that spirit, always pushing their intellectual or experiential boundaries. So, if we keep pushing beyond this learning zone, what's next? Is there a limit to how far we can extend, or is there a kind of final frontier?
Beyond your learning zone lies what the source terms the panic zone, or maybe more provocatively and perhaps more accurately for those who embrace it, the competent zone. And this is where perceptions diverge wildly. It almost defines two different worldviews. Those who never leave their comfort zone often describe it as a place where very serious things can happen, as if, beyond it, the world ends. Their question, born of fear, is always, don't go out, it's going to be terrible, and what if it goes wrong? They really see it as a cliff edge.
The ultimate fear of failure, then, projecting that onto an unknown future. But beyond just like the surface fear of failing, what deeper anxieties does the source identify? The ones that keep people sort of paralyzed in that panic zone perception, even before they've tried.
Yeah, it's often the fear of the consequences of failure, maybe more than failure itself. The fear of external judgment, of financial ruin perhaps, of embarrassment, or fundamentally maybe the loss of the identity they've carefully constructed within their comfort zone. But those who embrace this zone, they have a completely different perspective. They call it the magical zone, the place where wonderful things can happen to you that you don't know yet because you haven't been there yet. Their question shifts dramatically from, what if it goes wrong, to daring, but what if it goes well? This zone is characterized by outstanding challenges, the kind that truly test and reveal your capabilities. When you consistently enter and operate within this competent zone, you finally find the purposes of that new knowledge, you can truly live the realization of our dreams, and you become fundamentally ready to face new goals and conquer new objectives with a newfound sense of mastery.
That's a really profound shift in perspective, from the world ends to the magical zone. It seems like the core misunderstanding for many is that leaving the comfort zone means abandoning it, right? So, what really happens when you choose to make that leap?
You've absolutely hit on the foundational premise there. What truly happens when you choose to leave your comfort zone is that you extend your comfort and learning zone. The insights are very clear on this. Changing does not mean you lose what you had, it means you add. Change in this context isn't a subtraction, it's a powerful act of development. This completely reframes change from a sacrifice to an exponential growth, doesn't it? You're not sacrificing yourself, you're compounding who you are. Every step outward is a net gain, not a loss.
That reframes everything. It's not subtraction, it's addition. That's a much more empowering way to look at it. So, if it's an addition, then what is that underlying fear we feel?
The underlying fear is of losing what you have, or even worse, of losing who you are. And this is where two opposing forces come into play that dictate our movement. There's emotional tension, which powerfully pulls you back towards your comfort zone, and then there's creative tension, which will make you move outwards towards your aspirations, your dreams. To consistently move forward, your motivation simply has to be victorious over your fears. It has to be stronger. This means consciously identifying and confronting specific, pervasive fears, the fear of what others will say, fear of failing, and fear of ridicule and shame. You have to recognize them and directly challenge them.
So, it's about pushing through those very real anxieties, but understanding which anxieties they are. Okay, that brings us to the next big question, doesn't it? Now that we understand the terrain, from comfort through fear and learning to panic or competence, the ultimate question for our listeners is, how do we actually do it? And how do we persuade our brain, which, let's face it, loves its comfort, to embrace this expansion, to make it bigger, huge, giant?
Well, if the comfort zone is the one you like the most, the one you are the best in, It makes absolute sense to expand it, right? The bigger it is, the safer and more capable the brain feels, and the better and more satisfied we become. The material we studied outlines a pretty compelling process. The first step, and arguably the most crucial, is to truly believe in yourself. You have to see yourself as the protagonist of your life. If you don't make your own decisions, or if you consistently let fear decide, someone else or just circumstances will likely make them for you.
That sounds simple on the surface, but for many people, that's the hardest step. Does the source suggest any practical, first, maybe micro action, to build that foundational self belief?
It's less about a single microaction, I think, and more about an ongoing shift in perspective. It emphasizes that by properly managing your fears, not eliminating them, that's probably impossible, but acknowledging and navigating them, your self-esteem will naturally grow. This, in turn, fuels your optimism. It gives you a completely new vision of reality, one the source explicitly calls full of opportunities. This transformed mindset then allows you to more effectively define your path, to clearly choose your objective, crystallize what your dream truly is, and unequivocally identify a motivating factor, something that genuinely inspires and propels you forward.
That sounds like a clear strategic path. But I imagine there are some growing pains along the way. The journey to a bigger comfort zone can't be entirely smooth sailing.
Oh, absolutely not. The source highlights that it's completely normal to acknowledge growth pains. When you compare your starting point, your current comfort zone, with your destination, your big dream, it's easy to feel as if you shrink. But this feeling isn't a sign of regression. It simply means you will become aware of what you still need to learn. And to help you navigate this period of feeling vulnerable or small, it's immensely useful to ground yourself. Remember your origins, your values, and your principles, and take time to reflect on your personal mission in life. This kind of anchors you while you're stretching.
Grounding yourself while aiming high. I like that balance. So once you're grounded, how do we keep that outward momentum going? Against the pull of that emotional tension, how do we maintain the creative tension?
Right. To help maintain that creative tension and stop the emotional tension pulling you back, it's essential to continually reflect on your personal vision. Ask yourself, what is beyond my dream? And crucially, why? Why do you want to achieve your dream? This deep why becomes your unwavering compass. Once you've successfully changed those limiting biases, you truly trust yourself in your dream, and you are absolutely clear on your fundamental why, then our source clearly states it's time to act and leave your comfort zone. That's the moment of commitment.
So for us to truly move forward, motivation must ultimately be victorious over our fears. It's a constant internal battle of wills, really, between the desire to grow and the deeply ingrained instinct to stay safe.
Exactly. Therefore, it becomes absolutely essential to actively work on managing that emotional tension, especially by directly confronting the specific fears that leaving your comfort zone often provokes. These include the very human fear of what others will say about your choices, the paralyzing fear of failing, and the often debilitating fear of ridicule and shame. Recognizing these precise fears and then actively confronting them is the critical step to truly moving forward. It's about shining a light on them, rather than letting them lurk in the shadows.
Our material suggests thinking deeply about your personal vision, asking yourself that powerful question: what is beyond my dream? Why do you truly want to achieve your dream? It's about finding that deeper, almost spiritual purpose that transcends the immediate goal. What can someone realistically expect when they finally make that leap? When they genuinely step out into the learning or even maybe the panic zones?
Well, you'll experience the profound pleasure of learning to pursue your dreams. But be prepared. At first, you may very naturally feel incompetent and vulnerable. You might even find yourself thinking that pursuing your dreams is really risky. But it's vital to recognize this as a normal, even positive part of the process. You are human after all, and you don't know everything. You are learning. The source offers some powerful reassurance here, basically stating, congratulations, you are moving towards your dream.
So wait, rather than seeing that initial incompetent and vulnerable feeling as a sign to retreat, it's actually confirmation you're on the right path. That's a radical shift in perspective for many of us.
It really is. It reframes that discomfort entirely.
Okay, so that's such a powerful reframe for those uncomfortable moments. How then do we regain that sense of competence when we do feel vulnerable? Because that feeling can be paralyzing.
You do so by consciously utilizing your personal resources that you undoubtedly have and that you forgot to use in your haste. We all have them. This involves some practical steps for sustained growth. First, be patient with your preparation. Understand that true readiness takes time. Second, have confidence in your objective. Maintain unwavering belief in your chosen path. Third, prepare your strategy well. Build a clear roadmap. Don't just jump blindly. And maybe most importantly, be perseverant and positive. Know that setbacks are just part of the journey, not the end of it. If you consistently follow these steps, then before you imagine, your vision of yourself will have come true.
So, the big aha moment here for you listening is that the comfort zone isn't a fixed, impenetrable boundary, but a dynamic, flexible space you can continuously expand. This expansion leads directly to incredible personal development and ultimately to the realization of your deepest dreams. It's about building a bigger, more capable you, one step at a time.
Indeed. We encourage you to reflect deeply on the immense potential that lies just beyond your current comfort zone. Consider the profound pleasure and deep satisfaction that truly comes from learning and growing as you actively pursue what genuinely inspires you. The journey itself is as rewarding, if not more so, than the destination.
We hope to see you again in the next Common Sense episode by Pylotechnica. We provide you with technical tools to progress and foster your well-being, empowering you to feel stronger, more secure, and in control. Our team of aviation experts understands that you face a dynamic sector that requires constant learning with the pressure, stress, and challenge of finding a real balance between your life and your work. On our website, you can find various tools designed to help you advance your career. Subscribe to our website, www.pylotechnica.com, and follow us on our social networks.